Okay, so I finally got my mic to work and decided to do my first solo video in probably a couple of years. Or a couple of years. I mean, a couple of months, maybe like 9 months or so. Actually, I think I haven't done one since Blades, but somebody can correct me on that. Uh, so yeah, I decided just to have an excuse pretty much to try out my editing and everything and just do whatever. So pretty much just random thoughts, but in this case, they're not too random. I've spent about a lot of time thinking about this, as any Batman fan has, and so there's at least a outline that I've always had in my mind of this, but finally getting to actually do this list was really interesting because it's it's like with my favorite Batman writers or favorite stories and stuff like that, where you have like a top five usually, but then it's hard to do the rest of the list. It's hard to find the next part, like I was recently doing top 10 Batman villains just in the comments of another video, and it was really weird because I got I have my top like four, or always in my head. I always know what that is, but I was so confused in the last time, last couple, but yeah, it's to Batmobiles. Top 10, or sorry, top 15 Batmobiles. In my personal opinion, this includes comics, video games, movies, shows, animation, the works. So, uh, yeah, I'll start off with number 15, which is Batman Noel. I don't know why, but just the Noel Batmobile by Lieber Mayo just is fantastic. It just, maybe it's just because the art is so beautiful in that book and he's such a great artist, but it's kind of like a combination of the more almost kind of beastly, like powerful looking Batmobiles that you got around this time, mixed with the sleekness of some of the older ones. It's just kind of a perfect mesh. There's not really much more I can say than that. Just it's a perfect combination of what makes a Batmobile work. So yeah, just Lieber Mayo's Batman Noel Batmobile, just fantastic. Uh, number four, number 14 is the Batman '66 Batmobile, the Adam West Batmobile from the TV show. I freaking love this car. Everyone loves this car. Everyone has said their piece on it. Uh, it has the red, which is a rarely used color, which I actually do like on a Batmobile. It has just it's so freaking slick, and it's the only one on my list that has the open canopy, because I don't like that on a lot of other Batmobiles. In fact, I think this is the only Batmobile that I think pulls it off. Because on all the other ones over the years, I just never liked the open canopy. I get why it looks, yeah, tongue-tied, looks cool. I get why it is there, mainly because of this. Though the Batmobile did have an open canopy before the '60s show, but still, this is what popularized that. So in comics for the next decade, or well, almost the next few years actually, because, well, I'll get to that. But Neil Adams' Batmobile obviously was very different, but then you would still get, even into the '80s, the open canopy Batmobile, just because that's how popular the '60s Batmobile is. Just everyone loves it, everyone knows it. It's fantastic. Nothing really more to say. Just absolutely iconic and beloved. Number 13 is, and I'm gonna get hate for putting it so low on this list, but the Tumbler. Uh, what can you say about the Tumbler? It's fantastic. It's something that nobody would have thought would work, just judging by the trailers for Begins, and then seeing it in action. It works. It fits for that Batman. It does what every Batmobile and every Batcave and every Bat suit and whatnot should do. It fits its version of Batman. A lot of people who are just fans of the animated series or just fans of certain comic book stuff probably don't wouldn't like this Batmobile at first. But that's kind of a good thing in a lot of ways. It's its own. It's the Batmobile that fits its Batman, not the '60s. The '60s Adam West Batman would not work with this Batmobile. Like you get Frank Robbins Batman, he would not drive this Batmobile. Dick Springs Batman would not drive this, or both Dick Springs, wasn't you remember, like Bill Finger Batman would not drive this Batmobile, but the Nolan Batman would, and it embodies that Batman so well and does such a good job of just it tonally fits, it just looks perfect in action, it's actually pretty functional. It's the saddest part of Dark Knight is not when Rachel dies; it's when the Batmobile dies. Especially because it even says like goodbye or whatever. It's genuinely tragic. But yeah, I love this Batmobile. It's so good that in the comics. I mean, we've had the Tumbler has shown up in comics before, but it's so good that we haven't had a bunch of Batmobiles trying to rip this one because it works so well in its own context. It looks so good in live action because it's really there and it's doing the stunts that it looks like it's doing. But it's something that I don't think would work in the comics too well because it's the Nolan first Batmobile. It's part of that. It's like the 60s Batmobile. It's part of that legacy. It's part of that movie, part of that tone, part of what makes that movie work. It's the Nolan Batmobile. It's Bale's Batmobile. It fits that version so well. And it's just fantastic. It's a freaking behemoth, and you'd be terrified seeing that Batmobile. All the other ones look amazing. Some of them do look genuinely scary, but other than maybe the one from Dark Knight Returns and the one from the Cult, that's the one that you probably just drive the other way the moment you see that thing coming down the street. But yeah, on to number 12. The Batmobile that first showed up in Batman 526, which was drawn by J.H. Williams. I freaking love this Batmobile. It's something that people never bring up this Batmobile like at all, and I really don't get why, because it's fantastic. And I didn't even know it existed until I was reading. I think it was a 3-parter with Riddler kidnapping Cluemaster, and then Batman and Robin have to work with Cluemaster after he escapes or something, or Riddler gives him to them to be like a price. I forget. It's complicated. It's a really good arc from Dixon's run, and I was blown away by just this Batmobile. I don't know. It has a very realistic feel, but still has the Bat motifs, but it still feels like kind of like, the Neil Adams, like, urban camouflage kind of Batmobile, but it also has the military-grade tech kind of feel to it. I mean, the way that the doors open is kind of like the animated series. Actually, it's more like the, with the, what do you call it? The Batman v Superman Batmobile, how the doors open, except they just go to the front, but still, they go backwards, but, like, it still kind of like looks military grade, looks very custom, but it also has the Batman aspects. Like, it's kind of like the Noel Batmobile, where it's a good combination of all of the other Batmobiles and what makes them work, and it just really works on so many levels. And sadly, it was also, just like the Tumbler, tragically destroyed during Cataclysm. It got crushed, which is really sad because I genuinely love this Batmobile. And I wish it got more love. It really should show up in a movie one day. But yeah, so on to number 11, which is the original Batman the Animated Series Batmobile, the Bruce Timm Batmobile. I like the New Adventures Batmobile, which people don't seem to, but I genuinely like that Batmobile. But yeah, the original one, just in terms of how it's drawn and how it works on screen, I think is my favorite. It's just fantastic, and it resembles the 89 Batmobile, but isn't that Batmobile. It resembles a lot of other, kind of cars over the years, but it's still, it's its own thing on so many levels, and it has the Bat aesthetic, but it's not too blatant about it. It's very subtle. It's incredibly sleek. It makes no sense maneuverability-wise. It's probably the most flawed Batmobile design since the one from the Cult, with that giant freaking monster truck Batmobile, but I don't know, there's something about it that just really, really works on so many levels. Yeah, I actually, to be honest, I almost prefer the one that we see in like two shots in Mask of the Phantasm. Or no, sorry, I think it was the Mechanic. But yeah, this is a just fantastic Batmobile, and it has been used in the comics before very well by Dustin. I forget how to pronounce his last name. I think it's Nigen, something like that. His Batmobile, when he draws stuff in Dini's run, is just like this. And again, it doesn't make much sense how it could turn. I mean, in early episodes of TS, it actually uses the same thing that the 89 Batmobile does, where it has a hook that attaches to lampposts and lets it turn. But yeah, it's style over maneuverability, I guess, but that's kind of what makes it work. It's absurd, but it just pulls it off. But yeah, so number 10, the 1989 Batmobile. Again, everyone has said their piece about this. It's fantastic and just really, really awesome. The turbine in the front, the way the cockpit opens, the bat aesthetic and how sleek it is, and how it's very, like, just fantastic. It's so good, especially because, I mean, you get to see the 66 Batmobile in action and stuff like that, but not in the middle of the streets driving around constantly, which is kind of mind-blowing just watching 89 with this Batmobile being involved in a lot of action sequences. I mean, it's not necessarily involved in a chase per se because they're on foot during the chase parts, but it's still just a fantastic Batmobile. And I think it's the first one to ever use remote control, so it has that, which is fantastic. And overall, just, again, another classic Batmobile that you really can't, like everyone has explained why it's great, and nothing really more to add. Just the 89 Batmobile looks fantastic and fits with the aesthetic of that film really well. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of that film, but the aesthetic of it is brilliant, and the Batsuit and the Batmobile are fantastic. The next one, number 9, is, and this is going to be shocking to most people unless you know me and what my taste in Batman shows is, Brave and the Bold's Batmobile. I freaking love Brave and the Bold. I think it's the best Batman. When it comes down to Batman shows, I think I'm divided between Brave and the Bold and the Batman, but I think Brave and the Bold does edge the Batman out just barely. It has the Bat Shield from the Sprang Batmobile. It has the red from the Sprang Batmobile, but it's like an elongated version, so it kind of has some 89 elements and some TAS elements. It has the shield of another. It has the shield of. Oh, which one had the shield? Oh yeah, the Moldoff Batmobile. It has the shield of the Moldoff Batmobile, and that was also used for Killing Joke and in the 90s when Dick Grayson was Batman, and Bruce, when Bruce came back, he used that Batmobile again. Like, it's just a great combination of Batmobiles that people don't bring up that often, other than obviously the 89 one and TAS, but it's a combination of a lot of elements that I feel like have gotten lost over the years. Again, like the bubble dome kind of cockpit, and the red, and the bat shield, and it's so great to see all these classic elements that I love that have been taken away over the years, and the monofin, as people have called it, the single fin Batmobile, and just getting to see that again, it's just really fantastic, and it stands out so much in that world, but it fits the aesthetics nevertheless. It's just kind of perfect in every way. But yeah, so on to number 8. Is the Batman and Robin comic book Batmobile. Not the movie Batmobile, not the one that's, jumping all around and looks really, really unsafe. No, the Batman and Robin by Grant Morrison, pre-52 Batmobile, the flying Batmobile, as many people call it. It doesn't look like a standard Batmobile at all. Even when it's driving, it doesn't look like one at all. It's like it is a giant dome. Its cockpit and / windshield like its windshield is a freaking red bat symbol that like uh slides back, and it's just like the windshield is a bat symbol. That is fantastic, and it flies. It you don't need the Batwing anymore. I mean, obviously for big flights and stuff like that, you know, never just the Batwing. It's still needed, but it's kind of leading into the Batman Beyond stuff. You know, from the animated universe, like it's its own version, it's the comic book version of that. It it's just really awesome. And I know a lot of people don't like it, but I freaking love it because you know it was a new era for Batman. It was an evolution, and so you need stuff like this to showcase that. And you know, I'm always forgetting. Oh yeah, it got destroyed in Convergence, which pissed me. Yet again, one of these Batmobiles gets destroyed, and that's really saddening. But uh, yeah, just overall, I freaking love this Batmobile, and you know, no matter what anyone else says, it's awesome. Yeah, I'm okay with the Batmobile flying, and I'm okay with the red on it. So it again takes, you know, elements that most people either don't like or don't remember and uses them, and that's just something I really love. Uh, Number 7 is the Monster Men, both Dark Moon Rising from the, you know, Monster Men, second Monster Men Batmobile, which was drawn by Matt Wagner. And the story was also written by Matt Wagner. That's one of my all-time favorite Batman stories. And I love how at the beginning, the Batmobile, which is kind of just a, you know, standard car with I think some fins on it, gets destroyed. So then by the end, Bruce gets, you know, the first Batmobile, and it's awesome. It looks kind of, again, it has that like military grade kind of feel to it, and it doesn't have many Batman aesthetics. He has added nets to it, which he showcases, and I think he added smoke bombs on the armor plane and stuff like that. But it's really cool to see it just because, especially in the context of the story, it's him kind of becoming, you know, kind of the Wraith kind of Batman, you know, building off his aesthetic, building off the fear that that aesthetic brings thing to it, and it fits that world, it fits the story in a lot of ways, it fits what Wagner's trying to do, and it's just amazing. Plus, it leads to one of the best jokes in that book, which is Bruce staring at the Batmobile and Alfred saying, like, oh, if it was more like a bat, wouldn't you add a fin to it? And then Bruce is just staring off into space, and Alfred's like, oh god, you're actually considering it. And the next time you see it in the next Dark Moon Rising, part of the Dark Moon Rising miniseries, Mad Monk, he has the fins on it, I think. So that's brilliant. But yeah, I just love this. I'm not always the biggest fan of the military grade realistic ones. Like, I like some of them don't work. This is, I think, the best example of that kind of Batmobile. And yeah, it's just fantastic. Number 6 is the Dick Sprang Batmobile, which premiered in issue 20 of Batman. It's the first Batmobile with red on it. It's, I think, the second Batmobile. Yeah, it's the second Batmobile with a bat shield. I'm not the biggest fan of this bat shield. I prefer the one that Robinson used, but I still love the Sprang Batmobile. It's even more compact and like smaller than the previous Batmobile, the Robinson one, but it's still just really cool, and I just absolutely love it. You know, it's a classic, and I love the Bat Shield. As people can tell, I'm obsessed with the Bat Shield. I feel like it needs to be on every Batman vehicle. I get pissed off when it isn't, especially when people do callbacks, and I'm like, it's not a Golden Age callback unless you have the Bat Shield on the Batmobile or the Batwing, or Bat Gyro. Either one. But yeah, so kind of leading into that, or leading from that into my number 5 is once again the Bat Shield with Jerry Robinson's Batmobile from Batman issue 5. This Batmobile is just fantastic, and it's just a classic, and you know, it's the first one I think with the fin, it's the second one that was blue, it's the first with the Bat Shield, it's the first to look as armored as it is. It's just fantastic, and it brings in a lot of the elements that I love from later Batmobiles, and it's just amazing. number 4. Oh shit! I actually realized that I haven't been reading this in the correct one. Oh, I just realized I only have 14 Batmobiles. Oops. So I guess this is a top 14 list. I don't know why it took me so long to realize that. I'm doing this on PowerPoint, so I was thrown off by the fact that I had an intro slide, which I probably shouldn't have done. Apologies. I can really quickly throw in a Batmobile behind the Batman Noel. Oh, well, there was one that I was planning, but I kind of thought as the 15th, but it was confusing. Or I was kind of split on it because it wasn't necessarily the it was very similar to another one that I really like, but that's higher up on my list, and I was kind of thinking of making it a part of that, but I'll go with it anyway. It's its own thing. So this is technically beneath number Noel. So move everything up one number, and so this is 15. It's the Batman 408 Batmobile, which is the one that Jason Todd steals the tires from. Especially the one on the cover, which is different than the one in the actual book. It's like a combination of the Neil Adams very armored, oh not armored, very like as I always say, like urban camouflage kind of Batmobile, but mixed with the not military grade, but well, yeah, military grade, like very tech heavy Batmobile. So it's an interesting car to say the least. Just yeah, I really like it. It has the bat shield in its own way and looks really interesting. It's kind of just a more armored version of the Neil Adams Batmobile, but you know, I guess it is its own Batmobile, and I forget who drew that Batmobile. That's gonna mess with me. Oh, it's Aparo. I think that was Aparo. Yeah. So, and he's one of my favorite Batman artists. So yeah, that's 15. I'm really crappy with counting, it seems. But yeah, so on to number 3. Thankfully, I had an extra one already up and ready, on the top of my head. But the next one is, so number 3, which I just said was 4, but it's actually number 3, is the Arkham Asylum Batmobile. I love this Batmobile. It's just fantastic. Like the original Arkham Asylum Batmobile, I wish was the one we had in Arkham City, because it's sleek. It has elements of the '89 Batmobile. It has elements of the TAS Batmobile. It has elements of the Batmobile in the comics at the time, but it's still its own thing. It's just fantastic. It kind of has its own version of the Bat Shield if you really look closely. It has the bat fins and everything. It has a really cool turbine. It's just freaking amazing. I don't really know what more to say, but I love this Batmobile. It's really perfect. Again, another Batmobile that gets destroyed. It's depressing when it gets smashed, but it does go out in the coolest way possible. It smashes Bane into the river. So, yeah, I guess it was worth it in the end. But yeah, so next, number 2, is the Neil Adams Batmobile from the 70s, which first showed up in Detective 400. I love this Batmobile. In fact, they've been putting out those models of the Batmobiles last year for the 75th anniversary. For the 75th anniversary. And I have this one and my number 1 choice. And this is just fantastic. The Detective 400 Batmobile. They tried to make like a more kind of urban, like consumer grade, but still advanced, but still consumer grade, but slightly customized Batmobile. But it was weird because the first time they did it was like right before this, it was a sports car that Bruce Wayne was given, and so it's technically Bruce Wayne's car, and he even drives it out of the Wayne Foundation's building's standard like exit. And again, it's a custom race car that Bruce Wayne is testing out. So Batman is bringing Bruce Wayne's car to probably highly publicized car to a bunch of crime scenes, which is probably gonna bite him in the ass. So he as time goes on, they actually very quickly give him this one, and the Neil Adams Batmobile just takes off really quickly. In fact, what's great is in the issue itself, when it shows up in Detective 400, they even have a line like, an editor's box that's like, hey, if you guys like this one, give us some feedback, because we might stick with this one. And they did, and it's the standard Neil Adams Batmobile, and it looks fantastic. It looks like a standard car. You can believe that this is just a standard decked out car with, it has the bat shield on it, but it just kind of looks like a decal to those who aren't really looking closely, or they won't even notice it if he's driving by. It's stealthy, but in like the best way possible. It's urban camouflage, as I keep calling it, and it looks amazing. It fits the aesthetic of the comics of the time. It's just perfect, and it's weird that I'd like such a mundane Batmobile, but again, it has the classic bat shield. It has the elements that make that work, but it fits its time. It fits what they were going for in that era. And that's what a good Batmobile is supposed to do. That's what a Batmobile is supposed to do. It fits its role. And I love that Batmobile for that reason. But, alas, the final one. And if you've ever talked to me or Steve, you know that this is my favorite Batmobile, or this is the best Batmobile ever. First appeared in Detective 592, but technically, arguably, but the true version of like what it is, and the version that I much prefer, first showed up in Detective 601, and it's the Norm Brayfogle Batmobile. I love this Batmobile. It's fantastic. There's a bunch of different variants on it. Again, there's the 592 one, which is slightly different. There's the 601 one, which is my favorite. There's the Shadow of the Bat one, which is weird, but nevertheless awesome, which I think is the one I'm using the image of, is from Shadow of the Bat, but it's kind of a little bit more like the 601 Batmobile. But nevertheless, I love this Batmobile. It is just astounding. It's so alien. I think people have called it the spaceship Batmobile. I think I've heard people call it before, and it definitely fits that. It has the gold aesthetic, which sadly is lacking on Batmobiles. It has an interesting cockpit, which again has the sliding cockpit, which I really like, or the sliding windshield. It has the bat shield on the front, but in the coolest way possible. It's so custom and weird and strange. It has the Batman aesthetic, but also has something you've just never seen before. And it's the exact opposite of the Neil Adams Batmobile, but it does the same thing that Neil Adams Batmobile does in terms of being good, which is, again, it fits the aesthetic of that world, and this most certainly fits the Batman of that time on so many levels. It just because Batman was he wasn't an urban legend at that time, but he was still he was kind of becoming more eccentric again and less broody, and there was more kind of fun in the 90s than there was in the 80s, and you kind of get you get that again with this Batmobile, where it looks dark and brooding and intimidating, but it also is kind of wacky in a way, and there are it's really telling if there are serious stories being told, but it's still insane and hilarious, and sometimes just the absurdity of the situation. And this Batmobile will be in intense car chases, but you take yourself out of it. You kind of just laugh at how absurd and just fantastic this Batmobile looks. And I really wish it was in Arkham Knight, and it isn't. Same goes for the Neil Adams Batmobile. That wasn't in Arkham Knight, and that just really makes me sad, because this Batmobile needs some love. It never really shows up these days, and I really wish it did, because even its influence hasn't really been seen that much in other Batmobiles outside of the 90s. But nevertheless, it's my all-time favorite Batmobile. It's probably my all-time favorite Batman vehicle. It just looks fantastic. But yeah, so I was intending for this to be a shorter video. It's 30 minutes, but yeah, that's all. Bye.